le monde. Okay, so hopefully by the end of this PowerPoint, you should be able to demonstrate knowledge of the geography, history, and cultural practices of Paris, France, as well as be able to discuss the differences and similarities between your culture and that of Paris. Alors, Paris, Île-de-France. Voici Paris sur la carte de France. Nom des habitants, les Parisiens. Population, plus de 2 millions d'habitants. Personnages célèbres, Edith Piaf, Jean-Paul Sartre, Coco Chanel et Louis Braille. Alors, Edith Piaf. Ok, Edith Piaf. Ici. Edith Piaf is a famous actress, or was, I should say, a famous singer-songwriter, actress, and cabaret performer. She was known for her songs La vie en rose and Non, je ne regrette rien. Jean-Paul Sartre, this guy here, was a famous writer and philosopher, and he was a key figure in the philosophy of existentialism. Basically, he says that existence precedes essence, and that just means that only by actually existing and by acting a certain way can we give meaning to our lives. Coco Chanel, which I'm sure you know, is a famous fashion designer, of course. And then we have Louis Braille, or Louis Braille. So yeah, Louis Braille invented Braille. So when he was 3, he was playing with some tools in his dad's workshop. His dad used to make saddles. And he was trying to make some holes in a piece of leather with an awl, like a tool. And while he was trying to push down on the leather, the tool slipped and it hit him in the eye. And no treatment was able to save his eye. And eventually the wound became infected and then spread to the other eye. So by the time he was 5, he was completely blind in both eyes. So eventually this led him to create the reading system for blind people, Braille. He also later became an accomplished cellist and organist, and he, along with this guy, Jean-Paul Sartre, are buried in the Pantheon, which I'll tell you about in the next PowerPoint. If at any point during this keynote you hear me repeat something like 2 or 3 times, that's something that's important that you should probably write down in your notes. Alors, savais-tu que la ville de Paris est divisée en 20 quartiers appelés arrondissements? La ville de Paris est divisée en 20 quartiers appelés arrondissements. Alors, la ville de Paris est divisée en 20 quartiers appelés arrondissements. So, what does that mean? Paris is divided into 20 neighborhoods called arrondissements. La Grande Arche de la Défense. Cette arche immense est alignée avec l'Arc de Triomphe et le Louvre. À l'intérieur, il y a des bureaux. Alors, à l'intérieur de la Grande Arche de la Défense, il y a des bureaux. À l'intérieur, il y a des bureaux. So this big arch lines up with the Arc de Triomphe and the Louvre, and inside of it, there are offices. I know, it seems like it would be something cooler than that, but no, just offices. It was meant to be a 20th century version of the Arc de Triomphe, and it's a monument dedicated to humanity and humanitarian ideals. And it was inaugurated in July 1989, which is the bicentennial, or the 200-year, of the French Revolution, or the 200-year anniversary. Okay, voici l'Arc de Triomphe. Napoléon a ordonné construction de ce monument en 1806. Il se situe au croisement de 12 avenues. Alors, Napoléon a ordonné construction de ce monument. Napoléon a ordonné construction de ce monument. Napoléon a ordonné construction de ce monument. Et Il se situe au croisement de 12 avenues. Il se situe au croisement de 12 avenues. Il se situe au croisement de 12 avenues. So Napoleon ordered the construction of this arch in 1806, and it sits at the crossroads of 12 streets. And I'll show you on here. So this right here, it's a big roundabout. And so if you want to, you can actually go on top of it here. But the only way to do that is they actually have an underground path that you can walk, a tunnel you walk through, and it brings you right here. You come out right there underneath the arch, and you're able to go up some stairs and go up into the arch if you like. So its full name is L'Arc de Triomphe d'Étoile, and it honors those who have fought for France during the Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon modeled it after the Roman Arch because he was obsessed with the Romans. It also lines up with La Grande Arche de la Défense and the Arc du Triomphe du Carrousel, which is another smaller arch that Napoleon built that honors his military victories, and it's in front of the Louvre. The Arcul de Triomphe in Budapest, Romania, looks just like it. It even has it's even in the middle of a roundabout, and it was also built to commemorate a war victory. But this one was built to commemorate Romanian independence from the Ottoman Empire. There are actually several of these Arcs de Triomphe all over the world. Okay, Le Soldat Inconnu. It's at the base of the Arc de Triomphe. Are the remains of an unknown soldier from World War I buried there. And every evening at 6:30, people lay wreaths of blue, white, and red on the tomb, and they relight a torch. And the flame symbolizes the sacrifices made by young men who gave their lives during the war. So in this picture, it says, Ici repose un soldat français mort pour la patrie. So here lies a French soldier who died for their country or for the homeland or for patriotism. So does anybody know where a similar monument and ceremony is held in the U.S.? Yeah, so the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, which is in Arlington Cemetery in Arlington, Virginia, the military guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is changed in an elaborate ceremony, which happens every hour on the hour from October 1st through March 31st, and then every half hour from April 1st through September 30th. They guard 24 hours a day, and they're from the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, and they're also known as the Old Guard. And the tomb guards are also called sentinels. This picture here was actually taken during a hurricane, so they literally stand out there at all in any weather, including snow and blizzards. Okay, little geography. Paris lies in a basin ringed by 7 hills, and the Seine flows from east to west in a 7-mile arc, and it divides the city between la rive gauche, the left bank, and la rive droite. It then curves north, passing La Défense. The Île de la Cité and Île Saint-Louis, 2 islands in the middle of the Seine, form the heart of the city. So we have Île de la Cité here. Oh, let's try that again. Let me turn my pen on. So this is Île de la Cité, and then this is Île Saint-Louis back here. The distances of all main roads are measured from le point zéro des routes de France, just outside of Notre-Dame on Île de la Cité. So again, the distances of all main roads are measured from le point zéro des routes de France. So the distances of all main roads are measured from le point zéro des routes de France. So what that means is they have a little placard on the ground in front of Notre Dame. And so if you're looking at a map of France and you're trying to decide how far is it from Paris to, I don't know, Nice, the starting point for Paris would start from that marker in front of Notre Dame. So that's what they mean by the distances of all main roads are measured from le point zéro des routes de France. All right. Paris was first settled in the 3rd century BC by a tribe of Celtic Gauls called the Parizii. Then the Romans ruled the city from 52 BC until the 5th century when the Germanic Franks took control. The Frankish king Clovis united Gaul, which was France's name at the time, and made Paris the capital of his kingdom in 508 AD. Clovis is considered to be the first French king, and his conversion to Catholicism led to widespread conversion of the Frankish people, which is why a lot of people in France are Catholic. Ok, le Louvre. D'abord forteresse, puis palais royal, c'est un grand musée aujourd'hui. La pyramide en verre a été construite par l'Américain IMP. D'abord forteresse, puis palais royal, c'est un grand musée aujourd'hui. D'abord forteresse, puis palais royal, c'est un grand musée aujourd'hui. So first it was a fortress, then it became a royal palace, and today it's a big museum. The glass pyramid in front of it was constructed by an American, and when they first constructed it, most people hated it because it was too modern in front of this very old building. So what's one of the most famous paintings housed in Le Louvre? La Joconde, or you might know her as Mona Lisa. Ok, Notre-Dame de Paris. Sa construction a commencé en 1163. C'est un chef-d'œuvre de l'art gothique. Sa construction a commencé en 1163. Sa construction a commencé en 1163 et c'est un chef-d'œuvre de l'art gothique. C'est un chef-d'œuvre de l'art gothique. So construction began in 1163, and it's known as a masterpiece of Gothic art. It also, so I mentioned it started construction in 1163. It took them 182 years to complete. Okay, les cafés. Les Parisiens aiment se retrouver au café. Le Café de Flore et les Deux Magots sont deux cafés célèbres à Paris. Le Café de Flore et les Deux Magots sont deux cafés célèbres à Paris. Le Café de Flore et les Deux Magots sont deux cafés célèbres à Paris. So le Café de Flore and les Deux Magots are two very famous Parisian cafes. The two cafes are kind of rivals. Les Deux Magots is famous for being the hangout of Paris's literary and intellectual elite. So Jean-Paul Sartre, Ernest Hemingway, Albert Camus, James Joyce, Pablo Picasso, and even Julia Child, who was famous for writing the book French Cooking. It's like the Bible of French cooking, even though she's American. Anyway, every year they award a French novel with the Deux Magots Literary Prize. And Café de Flore is one of the oldest cafes in Paris. It was built in the 1880s. It is also a popular spot for writers to hang out, and they also give out their own literary award. The name originally belonged to a fabric and novelty shop. The shop sold silk lingerie and took its name from a popular play of the time entitled Les Deux Magots de la Chine. Its two statues represent Chinese magicians who gaze serenely over the room. In 1873, the business moved to its current location in the Place Saint-Germain-des-Prés. In 1884, the business changed to a café and a liquoriste, meaning they sell liquor, but they kept the name. So these guys are les Deux Magots. Ok, l'Institut du monde arabe. L'Institut du monde arabe symbolise les échanges entre les deux cultures. L'Institut du monde arabe symbolise les échanges entre les deux cultures. L'Institut du monde arabe symbolise les échanges entre les deux cultures. C'est un bâtiment moderne inspiré par l'architecture traditionnelle arabe. So l'Institut de Montre Arabe is an organization that was founded in Paris in 1980 by 18 Arab countries and France to research and distribute information about the Arab world and its cultural and spiritual values. So it symbolizes the exchange between the two cultures. It was established as a result of a perceived lack of representation for the Arab world in France and seeks to provide a secular location, meaning non-religious, for the promotion of Arab civilization, art, knowledge, and aesthetics. Inside of the institution, there's a museum, a library, an auditorium, a restaurant, offices, and meeting rooms. La place du Théâtre. À Montmartre, a conservé une atmosphère de village. C'est le rendez-vous des artistes locaux. Alors, la place du Théâtre est le rendez-vous des artistes locaux. La place du Théâtre est le rendez-vous des artistes locaux. La place du Théâtre est le rendez-vous des artistes locaux. So La Place du Théâtre is in Montmartre, which is a neighborhood in Paris. And this neighborhood has kept its village-like atmosphere, and it's the meeting place for local artists. Les catacombes. Au XVIIIe siècle, on a vidé certains cimetières parisiens trop pleins et mis les ossements dans le sous-sol de Paris. Au XVIIIe siècle, on a vidé certains cimetières parisiens trop pleins et mis les ossements dans le sous-sol de Paris. Au XVIIIe siècle, on a vidé certains cimetières parisiens trop pleins et mis les ossements dans le sous-sol de Paris. So in the 18th century, they emptied out certain Parisian cemeteries that were too full, and they put the bones in the catacombs underneath Paris. So we're going to do a quick little tour of the catacombs because I've been several times, and I've got some pictures to show y'all. Okay. So the catacombs is inside of old stone quarries or stone mines. And when you go down, you have to go down a bunch of steps, and you go down some kind of boring tunnels. Then they have a lot of information about how they used to be mines and blah, blah, blah. And then when you get to where the catacombs actually are, this is the first thing you see. This is a doorway, and it says, Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort, meaning stop, here's the empire of the dead. And you can kind of see it here. Everything is blocked off with these iron, they look like jail bars, which kind of adds to the creep factor. So, the catacombs contain the remains of over 6 million people, and they were moved there from between 1780 and 1814. So fun fact, the cemeteries were overflowing because so many people were dying, being killed during the French Revolution that they had no more space left to bury them. So they emptied the overflowing cemeteries, and anyone who died during this period was also interred or buried in the catacombs. And even before the revolution, many peasants were already dying due to drought, famine, flooding, and exceptionally cold winters, thanks to a volcanic eruption in Iceland in 1783. There are about 200 miles of tunnels, but only a small part is actually open to the public. And they like to make little designs with the bones, so they line them up around here, and they pile them up all the way to the ceiling, and sometimes the ceiling is fairly low. Over here, they have signs everywhere that tell you which cemeteries the bones came from. Like I said, they like to make little designs with them. So this thing is kind of it looks like a giant vase almost. And it's pretty big. So we have a lovely heart made of skulls. How sweet. little heart. And then we have a skull and crossbones here. So this is to kind of show you some of the different art that they do, and that you can see that the ceilings are fairly low. On the second photo here, you can actually see that the bones are piled up and they go all the way to the back. So in these rows, they stack them nicely, but then up here they just kind of pile everything on top. So here's a close-up of one of those signs where you can see where the bones came from. And there's also, this thing is a well, since remember we said that it used to be a mine, so they also have a well in here. Okay, moving on. Les artistes de Paris. In the late 19th and early 20th century, many important artists lived or worked near the Place du Tertre in Montmartre. So remember we said the Place du Tertre was the art where the artists meet up. So even that was happening even in the 18 and 1900s. One of the most famous was Pablo Picasso, who from 1904 to 1909 lived and painted in a building called Le Bateau Lavoie. Other artists who drew inspiration from and worked in the area are Vincent van Gogh, or Vincent van Gogh, Henri Matisse, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Edgar Degas, or Edgar Degas is how people pronounce his name in English for some reason, and Henri Toulouse-Lautrec. Savais-tu que? So did you know that? Paris is known as La Ville Lumière, but few agree on the origin of its nickname. So Paris's nickname is La Ville Lumière. Paris's nickname is La Ville Lumière, which means City of Lights. Some people say it comes from the many lights that illuminate the city and its monuments. Other people think it's due to Paris's cultural and intellectual energy. And the Louvre is actually 800 years old. So we said it was a fortress first, then a royal palace, now it's a museum. It's over 800 years old. It was designated a museum in 1793, and its collection has over 300,000 works that were assembled over 5 centuries. And some of the most important pieces in its collection are La Joconde, or Mona Lisa, and the Venus de Milo. So this here, let's try turning on the pen. This here is the Venus de Milo. So some of the most important pieces in its collection are La Joconde, or Mona Lisa, and the Venus de Milo. Alright guys, after you finish watching this video, you can do the little guess the artist game, and then you can try out doing the exit ticket.